Oh, yep.
Welcome to Women and the Businesses They Own, the podcast that goes deeper than business plans and branding. I'm Shari Hooper with Summit Wealth Partners, and I sit down with powerful women entrepreneurs to explore what it really takes to build something bold, beautiful, and their own. I ask the questions others don't. Questions that spark truth, honor, and complexity, and celebrate what it really means to lead as a woman in business and in life. So let's get into it. Welcome, April. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh, I really appreciate you being on here as well. I'm excited for everything that you're going to share today. So, if you can tell the listeners, give us a little bit of background, both professionally and personally, please.
Sure. Personally, so I am a mom of two kids. I've got a 16 and an 18-year-old. Yep, my 18-year-old just is getting ready to leave the nest. And my daughter she's got a business of her own. And I've got my guy has three kids of his own. So between the two of us, we've got five, and that keeps us very busy. Let's see, professionally, yep, I own Gauthier Family
I'm
Home
gonna
Care.
hold on just a second because I'm gonna bring you back to that. But just on that personal side, I just want to
Yeah,
explore a couple of things for us. It's so important to just kind of know where we're coming from because we both have, I don't know, let's call it weekends with our families or night times with our families. I know as business owners, we work a lot of hours and we work really hard and we ask a lot of our families, but we also as moms give a lot to our families, and it might not be a traditional role, but we certainly do what we can. And our hearts are big. And I've talked to you
mhm.
before. We've known each other, and I know you have a very big heart. But when we had spoke previously, and you just alluded to it, your daughter has a business. Could it be, and you tell me, is it because she sees what you do? And then tell me just a little bit about that business and how you might participate a little bit.
Sure. Well, it actually started a few years back when she was having a bit of a mental health crisis. And I really wanted to get her involved in some form of art because she's always been very artistic. I got her involved with, a local company that is really good about setting up young artists with more mature artists for some mentoring. And in doing so, it just kind of took off from there. She's painted a mural for downtown Grand Rapids over a storm drain, and she was so excited about that. And then she started a business doing some artwork for weddings. So she gets hired to go to receptions, draw the guests, and then they get a little piece of art whenever they leave as a favor.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That's
hmm
incredible. And for all of our local listeners here in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area, can you tell us the corner where we might be able to find that mural?
Yes, it's right across from DeVos Place. And so it's right in front of the seafood cafe, I think it's called. And so, yep, it's just on the ground, on the sidewalk. It's a storm drain. And it's meant to bring awareness to the storm drain so that people would be careful about littering.
Oh, that's a good idea. So that'd be great. So anybody, I think it might be Monroe and Pearl, maybe, or
Yeah, yeah,
but
I think lions.
oh, Lion,
I'm
maybe
not,
Monroe
yeah,
and
yeah.
Lion. Okay,
hmm
so for everybody listening, if you see it now, we know it's small
hmm
world. You'll
hmm
know exactly who painted that mural, which is really exciting. And if I remember, you have your friend that you said has three, well, your partner that has
Yes.
three
Yep.
kids and 6-year-old twins, if I remember correctly. So
Yes.
that must,
Yes. 6-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, lots of energy, so much fun. They're just incredible kids. Yep. And then his older son, Atticus, he is on a fast track to become a professional athlete. So we're
oh,
very just proud of all of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's very full on that personal side. And so we always just want to, it's a lot to, I don't know if jungle, maybe I was going to say juggle, not jungle, but a lot for balancing too. So now that we have a little bit more of that background and we can see that you're a proud mama, then
Mhm.
tell us a little bit then about your business.
Sure. So it's called Gauthier Family Home Care. We take care of seniors in their homes so that they don't have to move later in life if they don't want to. That's it in a nutshell. You mentioned, being a business owner, it's kind of keeps us pretty busy. And this profession in general is not a 9 to 5 job. It's very, when you're in the business of serving people, fires don't just happen between 8 and 5. So, it's kind of an around the clock job. And it's very rewarding if your heart is in it. And so we are careful who we hire, but yeah, we love our staff, we love our clients. It's incredible. Mhm.
There's certainly a culture that's really important, I think, with any business, and you always want to bring in other employees that have and fit that culture.
Yes.
It goes a long way. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the in-home care, obviously, it can be really beneficial to those that are just, especially some of our older seniors. They don't want to leave their home. This is a great alternative, and it's also not necessarily inexpensive because we always pay for what we get. Of course, I truly believe in that, but it's maybe a more inexpensive option than going into a skilled facility or some sort of assisted care.
Yeah, the cost varies based on the needs, right? And
Mhm.
so there are some companies out there that charge based on the level of care.
Okay.
We charge based on the amount of hours that you're getting. So we try to keep it affordable for people by including the rest of their support team.
Oh,
If somebody needs, I mean, we do as little as 1 hour.
okay.
If somebody needs, just help getting out of bed and maybe a shower, and then their family can check in on them at lunch, or we can help put them back to bed in the evenings. And so we just are really trying to build a cohesive team to make it available for them to age in place, which most people say they want to do anyway. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
How many seniors do you serve approximately?
Yeah, right now it's about 50. We
Okay.
have about 50 clients.
And is there capacity for more? If
Yeah,
this is really
absolutely.
incredible, for our listeners, we all have, depending on who's listening, we all
Hmm.
have grandparents, parents, some of us in our 50s potentially are in that sandwich generation that we might
Hmm.
be trying to shuffle not only our own children, but our own parents. And so this is certainly a nice option, even sometimes when we're trying to care for our parents, but we just need a day of errands every week or to get things done or to go to our kids' schools or whatever that might look like. Because I'm sure, like you said, there's a certain level of care. Perhaps, they're just coming in and just making sure they're okay and having conversation or doing a hobby with them to more of an extensive care, like you said, transferring, into the bathroom and what have you.
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely more clients that we can take on. We always have an excess of caregivers so that we can take on more clients. And we're always hiring and heavily vetting and training to make sure that we're ready when we get the call.
Oh, good.
So,
And so again, you're in Grand Rapids, Michigan for any of our
yes.
local listeners. And of
Mhm.
course, then how far is your reach then when you have people going into those homes?
Yeah, so we serve Grand Rapids and the surrounding communities, and by surrounding communities, north, south, east, west, we'll travel up to about a half hour to an hour outside of Grand Rapids. So as far south as Hastings, north is usually Rockford, Sand Lake area.
Okay. Oh, good. Good to know. Well, I have a couple of questions I'd like to have you answer
Sure.
here for us. So the first one is, who believed in your business before it was real, and what did that belief do for you?
Okay, so we actually have a founder, Dan Gauthier. That's hence the difference in names. And so he started the business in 2011. And then about a year and a half into it, he hired me as his first administrative staff. I just kind of came in and took over the administrative side of things, which freed him up to go out into the community and start networking. You know firsthand that networking is key to business growth. So that first year of hiring me, we grew by 300%. And so, yeah, when it came time for him to retire, he, offered the business to me. So I bought it.
That's incredible. So you would call his name was Dan, you said, correct?
Yep, Dan Gauthier.
So was he more of a mentor? Was he good at building up, praising? He believed in you. I mean, it sounds like this is the person that how would you describe that working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we talked about the sale of the business, there was a lot of mentoring that began because he was teaching me, the financial aspects of the business. And I will say that that was a life-changing event for me because having someone believe that I could not only run the business, but lead the business gave me a confidence and a challenge that I had never had before. So it really did strengthen and grow me in brand new ways. It was powerful, terrifying and powerful all at once.
I understand the terrifying feel. So were you able to then, are you the person that goes out and networks and do you still do the administrative or have you been able to bring in somebody similar to what your role was so you can continue to grow the business?
Yeah, I do the networking because I do think it's important to have a face of the business. And so I am almost always out in the community, and I do enjoy that aspect of it. I also do the financial aspects of the business as well. I do have an incredible team here in the office, and so I'm able to rest in knowing that everything else is handled well.
That is really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I keep hearing this theme of this mentor, and I think it's really important because whether it's one person or several people, it does seem like there's one standout person.
Yeah.
And I love that you have a Dan in your life or had a Dan
hmm
in your life.
hmm
So what's one truth about being a woman in business that you never expected to learn?
Right, I'm just gonna go right for it.
Okay, do it, do it.
Definitely gender discrimination. I was not quite prepared for some of the things that happened once I became a business owner. It was pretty in your face. I can give you lots of examples, but I'm just going to give you two. So, one is there have been people who have come into the office looking for a gentleman. And when I greet them and introduce that I'm the owner, I've had people ask for Dan's business card anyway because they wanted to speak to the gentleman who used to own the company. And, they were making a sales pitch and I knew it. And so I was kind of caught off guard by that. I was surprised at how blatantly straightforward
Yeah.
this was happening. I've also had clients, I mean, seniors, I've had an occasional senior really work at putting me in my place. I had a gentleman tell me in no uncertain terms that I am very lucky because in his time, there would never be a person like me in a position like this. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
So that makes
we've
it,
had we've had moments like that that I was surprised by. Yeah.
well, I guess when you are dealing with more of our seniors sometimes, that's more of what they remember, their time frame kind of makes me
Absolutely.
I love Lucy. Maybe just the Brady Bunch or something like that where,
Mhm.
women just had a different place, but you've been able to rise above that and people, I would say you've been in the business. How long have you owned the business now? Since it was 2011 that
Since
you were there. When did he sell?
he sold in at the very end of 2019, so just a few months before COVID.
Oh, fantastic. One
Right.
more thing to overcome.
It was definitely a trial by fire, but we got through it. So,
That's good. Well, and so since then, it's probably been, what is that, about 6 years?
yes,
And so
six years.
do you still have that? I mean, in the last year or two, would you still say that that gender equality of more women being a business owner to, them wanting, where's Dan? Do you still see that, or have they finally accepted and see your role and that you're doing well, very well?
That particular client that I mentioned, he seems to respect me now. And I have found over time that um, it's us delivering results that speaks louder than their bias.
Oh, that's
So,
incredible.
mhm.
Say that one more time, just for
Yeah,
everybody to hear.
results speak louder than bias.
I
So
love
we just
that.
work on delivering and not getting, I don't want to, get into it with people. I just
Yeah,
make sure to always provide, the best results that we possibly can. And that speaks for itself.
that's very good. That's strong. I actually like that. You might want to hang that on your wall, maybe in the
Oh,
conference room. It's really only about what you guys need to see, but that was really inspiring. I love that. So what part of your business do you think most people misunderstand, and how does that misunderstanding affect you?
sure. So in our field of senior care, it's always the same thing. It's always timing. Families tend to want to care for their loved ones when there's a decline, and they want to out of love, but ultimately it starts to take a toll on their own health.
Mm,
And we both know what stress can do to a body. So besides the physical challenges of, moving a person from a chair to a bed, um, that can injure someone if they're not fully trained, right? But then there's also the stress of adding the role of a caregiver onto being a daughter or a wife or a husband. And so when people wait for too long to call for help, which is almost always the case. There's
mhm.
a scary statistic out there that says up to 40% of family caregivers who do not accept help in the home end up passing before the loved one they're caring for.
That is incredible. I have heard that. I didn't know it was 40%. That is,
Yeah.
um, I mean, that's nearing half. And people, I know, I'm with you on that, where people do want to try to avoid paying for care, or they think that they can do it with some sort of a schedule between siblings, or I don't know, different things. But you're right. And a lot of this, I think, would come from a spouse trying to keep their spouse home.
Yes.
And then ultimately what they have done is, like you said, they've predeceased the one that needed the care, and now you've left that person even in a tougher spot, whether they recognize that or not. So it is really important. Do you have education that you try to do, to get those that percentage, or that goes out into the community for people to have a little more awareness before they went
Yeah.
by your sale?
Absolutely. We try. We do things like I've done speaking engagements, anything from, a church, like a senior class at a church to, I do lunch and learns at hospitals and rehabs. And so getting the information out there is the challenge. But, we're doing what we can. I've teamed
Mm,
up with other people in the community to do this as well.
okay, that's great. Yeah, that's really good information. So I understand, yeah, that timing would be everything. And always in my field, planning is the biggest indicator for me of fighting that fear. If we have a plan, we can ward off fear. And that's always what I go back to often. And I think we can use that in a lot of our owners, or in a lot of our businesses that we own. And so if people would work with you more on a plan, or even building that relationship up front, and potentially having a plan that maybe in 3 months we'll be back, or, something that they can then come back to, that would be incredible, certainly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was enlightening. So well, actually, let's do this one. What's one boundary you've learned to set in business that changed everything, even if it felt impossible at first?
Boundary. Um,
It's so hard.
yeah, I know, right? I would say I have learned to in business. I know there's so many. I feel like I'm trying to pick one. In business, I would say I've learned to be careful about, everybody right now is listening to the podcast Let Them,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And so I have definitely learned that over the years. We have a very sensitive industry. We are helping seniors, and so some people, I'm just going to back up and say, when you go to the hospital, you can usually tell if your nurse that walks into the room enjoys her job or she doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And it just becomes glaringly obvious. And this is one of those fields that it does become glaringly obvious. And so we are looking for people with the right heart. But if people are able to come through the door and we think we see it, and then it turns out that they don't, we're not going to mess around. We don't want people out in the field representing us if they're not fully invested. And so there are boundaries there that we are very careful about. I just never want to risk the care that someone is paying to receive.
sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, then there's no oversight when they're out in that senior's home and it's just them and the senior a lot of times.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
not like we can keep cameras on the caregivers. So
Right.
yeah, I can
Well,
see where
some
that.
people do, but even then, we're big on if you don't like your caregiver, just call and tell us. We'll switch it out. A lot of companies, I will say we value that not everyone is meant to get along with everyone. Personality clashes happen, and that is a natural thing, and we accept that as a reason. If Betty calls me and says, "I can't stand Jeanette," then I'm going to replace Jeanette, and we can maybe send Jeanette over to Louise because her and Louise get along great, and so
Right, right.
personality clashes is something valid that we want to know about and we want to be able to fix it. I always tell our clients, I need the feedback. I can't fix it if I don't know about it, right?
Yeah,
So.
sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. How about you said there was a couple of them. What other boundary can you think of?
Sure. Well, I hold that very near and dear to my heart as far as our office staff too. Sometimes people join the team and then they figure out I don't love this after all. And I always say to them, please just be honest and tell me it's okay to go elsewhere. I'm not going to get offended. I'd rather you tell me and we can figure out an exit strategy for you that is positive than for you to be faking it and then building animosity because that just brings toxicity to our team and it really affects morale.
Yeah.
So we're pretty big on I want the team that really has a passion for it, and that's what we've got right now, and it's pretty incredible the things that you can do when you surround yourself with the right people.
Well, you're very fortunate because I know that hiring is one of the toughest things to do, and even finding avenues to be able to hire
Yeah.
and then getting that cohesiveness with the everybody else. So
Hmm.
that's good. I applaud you on that one.
Ah,
Be
thanks.
able to have that for sure. Yeah, so one last question before we kind of get to some fun things is, and this one might surprise you a little bit, but if you, well, let me go back. There's one more that I guess I'd like to do, and so we'll see if we can get to that last one because I'm trying to dig in a little bit, and what I'm hearing from you, is obviously in your business, you know I guess what I haven't heard is, when you first came in 2011 and started working with your mentor, Dan,
Mhm.
how did that happen to work that? Because it seems like you fell right into this perfect opportunity. You guys worked really well together. You were able to build by 300%. Was there a sacrifice that stood out to you that you had to work through, or was it always just easy? And if it was easy, that's fantastic. But was it that for you? I mean, because now here you
It
are.
wasn't easy. I will back up and give you a little bit of a background to
Okay,
me.
I would love
This
to hear
is,
that.
I think, what you're looking for, a little bit of vulnerability here, and this I'm going to be very straightforward with you.
Okay.
I have had to work a lot over the years on my own self-talk and mindset. And so, in order to step into a role like this, I have already been working on it for years. I'll tell you that when
Okay.
I was a teen, I had a dad that he was a bit verbally abusive. He used to tell me very straightforwardly that I was never going to be anything more than a whore. And so
Oh, don't I
I
used to
do
have dads like that. Oh my goodness.
know, I know, I do have a constitution of hold my beer. Like I will take a challenge on, okay? And that one was a hard one for me because you probably know, I think it's like seven positives to outdo a negative that
Sure.
someone says
Yep.
to us, right? And so I had to learn through counseling and really practicing some positive self-talk that now I have as a daily routine. That I could be a lot more. And really, ultimately, now I strongly feel like we are our biggest limiters. If I'm limited, it's because I don't believe I can do something, and that's my own limit that I've set on myself. So yeah, it took years to perfect that self-talk, but it takes a lot of practice.
Mm.
And I feel like people start off from a place of brokenness and they start to think, well, I can tell myself that I'm great at something, but that doesn't make it true. And so they give up too soon, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so the more we practice that positive self-talk, the more studies show that our brains will start to believe it. And, it's been, I'm not going to tell how old I am, but a significant amount of years that I've been practicing now. So,
Well,
yeah.
that is tremendous. I love to be able to hear that because I'm always on that positive. I think my kids will say to me, "Mom, I don't need a cheerleader right now," because I'm always the one that's just, well, you need to do this. You need to be positive. You need to think positive thoughts. You need to have a better attitude. Attitude is a choice. I mean, there's
Mhm,
just so many
mhm.
things, and they're like, "Not today, Mom." So they get that a lot from me. So I love hearing those your buzzwords of mindset and self-talk. I am completely on board, and I hope our listeners are as well, because that is so powerful. And I actually have a pep talk book that I keep with me either in
Oh,
my work
nice.
bag or in my purse. And every day it's just a matter of saying these declarations. And you're right, we're the only ones that can limit ourselves. So it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It truly only matters what we think, and however we can overcome those negative thoughts. That's truly the most positive thing that we can do, the most
Yeah.
beneficial for us. So, well, I didn't expect that story necessarily. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. But and sometimes we do just fall into things that are sometimes easy, but only in timing of you being able to meet Dan and being able to join his Gauthier Homes, and then having the opportunity to be his successor. That seemed to be very fluid and natural and somewhat easy, but I'm sure there were other jobs that you had before that. And of course, as you've mentioned, you had to build yourself up for just this perfect
Mhm.
time and be ready to take those reins. So, again, I love praising and applauding. That is tremendous. That is tremendous.
Thanks.
So, how do you protect your creativity or joy when the business starts to feel like a machine or the grind
Mhm.
of the day to day?
So I do have a couple practices. I just mentioned the self-talk that is
Mhm.
probably the single most powerful, but something else I do every single night when I go to bed, I spend about 10 minutes just going over a list of all the things from that day that I'm grateful for.
Oh my
And
God.
then every single morning when I wake up, I spend about 10 minutes going over all kinds of things that I'm grateful for. And and because I started doing it twice a day, and so now I do it when I'm in the shower, I do it when I'm driving. And it really does help for me to stay in the right grateful mindset all day long so that when things are coming at me, things that I might not necessarily love, I'm able to maintain a composure. I'm going to go ahead too and throw out you and I met at a
Mhm.
Dale Carnegie class.
Oh, yes. We did. Yeah.
And so I learned a lot there too for just how to compartmentalize and hold things together until you can emotionally release and let things process in a healthy way. And There's just I can't speak enough to Dale Carnegie classes. So, we actually have it as a rule in our office that every single person in our office goes to a Dale Carnegie class.
That's
So,
incredible.
mhm.
And I think you mentioned to this to me not long ago because we went through 12 weeks
Yes.
and it was like 6 to 10
Yes.
every week, one night a week, 6 to 10, 12 weeks, and you couldn't miss more than one or two. And that's how we met is I had to miss one and you had to make it up. So I had to find a Dale Carnegie class in a different time frame in that somewhere in that right the one that I missed in any way, and that's where we met because I popped into your Dale Carnegie class.
Yep.
And interestingly, a little tidbit for you and others. In my own class, we were expected to do some pretty crazy things every week.
Yep.
And they were all new people, so it was somewhat easy-ish. I mean, your heart still pounded and wanted to come out of your chest, the things that they asked us to do and memorize and get up in front of the class and be ready for these speeches. And but when I went to your class, even it was like a whole brand new room of people I didn't know. And I was able to I can't remember what I talked about, but I was able to get on your so-called stage and be even my best version of myself because I didn't know anybody. And it's kind of like, you become somebody else. You put on a costume almost, and you can
Yes.
be better when you don't have to be yourself. I actually won an award or something that day in your
Mm,
class. You know how we would,
love it.
I don't remember what it was. I never got one in my class. I was holding myself back in some ways, even from there, and so I don't know, that all just came back. But anyway, just that was really interesting. But it does, your staff gets to go to Dale Carnegie that you're providing, and it's 8 weeks.
Yes,
So it's
they
a
have shortened it to 8 weeks, and my staff are excited about that.
I bet.
But yeah, I just met with someone from Dale Carnegie yesterday for lunch, and I mean, it's still just the most incredible team and the most incredible resources that they're giving people that we don't normally have because, to be completely honest, we don't stretch ourselves in those ways. So
Correct.
when we go to these classes and they're challenging you and you have to get up there and do things that are uncomfortable, by the end of that 8 weeks, or for us 12 weeks,
Mhm.
it's no big deal getting up in front of people now because you just did it for 12 weeks and it was embarrassing and uncomfortable, right?
It was. And when we got that certificate, that meant something. That
Yes.
went with me for a while. And I was like, well, if I can do Dale Carnegie, I can do anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It definitely brings, I can see where you have this cohesive team.
Mhm.
Everybody is going through some of those similar things and really building confidence through that too. Because you know that those are challenging. You can feel the challenge, you can feel that, and you complete this, and that's amazing. You really bring out the best through those classes. So that's a really great idea. For all you other business owners listening, you might want to consider that for your team. So okay, so as we wrap up here a little bit in the questions that I had wanted to hear from you, I also like to end with some lightning round type
Okay.
questions. But what I wanted to just emphasize before we begin that is just for anyone listening to, if this podcast has resonated with you, please consider sharing and telling others about it so they too can receive these same notifications. And also, if you know a female business owner that would be interested in being a guest in the future on this podcast, please reach out as well. So let's begin the lightning round. And so, what I mean by that is, I have just a few quick questions. It's not meant to make you think too hard, just the first thing that comes to mind. So, we're going to use our Dale
Okay.
Carnegie right now.
Okay.
Okay, so heels or tennis shoes?
Heels all the time. I just prefer to be professional, and I heard at a young age, you dress for the job you want, not the job you have, and people will look at you that way. So it just is a statement that suggests your image does matter.
I love that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you're right. You're right. Early bird or night owl?
Definitely early bird. I don't know. I just get up. I'm usually up by 4:30 or 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
moving on. Gold or silver jewelry?
I fluctuate. I know I go back and forth. I have it all. Yeah.
Okay, you like both. It depends on the outfit.
Yes, absolutely. Depends on
Okay.
the outfit.
Rom-com you could watch 100 times.
Oh, hmm. Um, Gosh, rom-com. I'm so not into rom-coms anymore.
Well, you have to
Um,
dig deep into your 80s then.
I know. I'm like, okay. I guess the other day I watched Pretty Woman with my daughter for she'd never seen it. So there's a rom-com. Yeah.
There you go. You've probably seen that one 100 times.
Yeah, yeah.
And the last one, what's your ideal Sunday morning?
Oh, I love sleeping in. I don't get too much. Definitely coffee out on the back deck with the birds chirping or what have you. Just a slow go because my life gets so little of that.
Hmm.
Sleeping in for me is usually 7 a.m. So it's hard to sleep in these days because your body gets adjusted to your schedule. Yeah.
Well, 7 a.m. is my early, so I'm glad it's your sleeping in. Well, I love that. Thank you, April. Thank you for being part of Women and the Businesses They Own podcast. Your story matters, and you told it beautifully today. And finally, to our listeners, remember, she came, she spoke, and she inspired. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.